Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Today, John, Raymond, Gordon, and I, Tanay, are excited to share something that's very special and close to our hearts. Apart from our shared passion for KMBE, there's one more thing that brings us together and excites us just as much, and that is cooking. When we thought back on our time in the kitchen, from those first clumsy attempts at recipes to the dishes we proudly shared with friends and family, we realized it's just like a lab. We noticed there are stages where things flow smoothly and others where frustration creeps in. So today, we want to take you on a journey through the process of cooking, breaking it down step by step and looking at where the system works well and where it can be improved. So let's dive together into the details.
Some common negative user experiences that is associated with cooking may be cutting off a bit of your finger while you're cutting off vegetables, or potentially scraping off your own skin while using a potato knife. Alternatively, one could use too much oil and end up having too much oil in their food or end up having oil burns on their arms. And finally, of course, you could have people cooking too much or cooking too little or just having the perfect Schrodinger cat of a chicken.
So this is the process map. The first step is to prepare and marinate. This is very important because marinating will decide the final taste, but it's not very enjoyable because it makes your hands oily and dirty. The next step is to transport to cooking area. This is an easy step. You just need to be careful when handling food. The next step is to heat the pan and add oil and seasoning. This is relatively easy and it's important because sufficient preheat time and proper amount of oil and seasoning will affect the results significantly. The next step is to cook with fry pan. This is the most critical step. You don't want over or undercooked food. You also get a lot of satisfaction when the final product is cooked properly. The smell in this step also makes it quite enjoyable. You also want to prepare your sides. It's not that important because these are just sides and it's relatively easy to do. The next step is you want to put the food on the plates. This is the easiest step and it's great to see the final result. The next step is to serve the food. This is relatively easy and it's very satisfying because it's a result of your whole preparation and cooking process and effort. The last step is to clean up. This is very important, but not very satisfying because you have to clean up the leftover marinade and oil, which are hard to remove. But it's very important for a good cooking experience next time.
One point of user dissatisfaction in cooking is the time taken prepping ingredients. Washing, chopping, and setting up ingredients is time-consuming and tedious. Meat ingredients, in particular, take even longer to prep, with marination taking up to 48 hours. This is problematic for people without time in their days to plan meals hours or days in advance. Another point of user dissatisfaction occurs when seasoning. Many recipes don't specify the amount of salt, often using vague terms such as a pinch or season to taste, instead of specific quantities. This can make it difficult for those without cooking experience or intuition to get the amount of salt right. The final point of user dissatisfaction comes from inconsistent cooking times due to different models of appliances having different temperatures. Because different stoves, ovens, and microwaves have slightly different temperatures, it can result in food being over or undercooked even when following recipes exactly. For example, a recipe could call for 20 minutes on high heat, but depending on the stove, 20 minutes could be too long or too short. This makes cooking in unfamiliar settings outside of your own kitchen difficult.
My main takeaway is that the process of cooking requires a gentle hand, and a little too much seasoning can ruin a dish. We need to be really careful when applying seasoning such as salt to reach the perfect balance.
My role of making the process map put into perspective how lengthy the cooking process is and the potential for various improvements in the process.
By the end of this project, I realized that while my experiences aren't entirely like others, there were a ton of overlap in our experiences of cooking, whether it be our dissatisfactions or joys while cooking.
I learned that the process of cooking is a very scientific process, and things such as the amount of seasoning or the time and amount of heat applied must be very specific in order to have the best outcomes. Many issues in cooking come from uncertainties in recipes or equipment settings.